Which old wives' tale is actually true? 1. Ammonia on a mosquito bite. Dab a bit of ammonia on it, and don't touch it. Count to 120 seconds, and the bite is gone, inflammation, etc. When I first heard of it, I didn't believe it. Now, just a touch of kitchen ammonia and don't scratch and it's beyond gone. Completely. 2. Wait, so the Windex trick in big fat Greek wedding works. 3. Yes, for insect bites, pimples, minor cuts, pretty much anything that needs cleaning. Except possibly for taints and such. Never intend to experiment there, thank you. 4. What about the butthole proper? I'm guessing that's a no-go? 5. Not sure. Why don't you let us know how it goes, for science? 6. Piss on a mosquito bite. Got it. 7. During the medieval times in the Flandrian gent, now Belgium, there used to be a very important job, the urine collector. Urine was later processed to create ammonia, which was, in turn, used to create saltpeter for making gunpowder. Every morning urine collectors would ride around the city with a huge barrel and pay money for urine. Obviously, some clever citizens emerged, who would dilute the product. Thus a new vocation emerged, the urine tasters, who would determine the quality and concentration of the coveted ammonia. Eventually times changed and humans learned to synthesize ammonia or harvest it in other ways, making the urine collectors and tasters obsolete. So all these urine specialists left Flanders, moved to Amsterdam and founded the Heineken brewery. 8. Badumch. 9. I figured that was the setup to a joke, lol. 10. Physicians back in the day used to taste urine, especially to diagnose diabetes. The mellitus. In diabetes mellitus. What you normally think of when you hear diabetes refers to the honey flavor of patients' urine. 11. We discovered our cat had diabetes when ants began to swarm around the litter box. 12. To add to this, run a spoon under hot water, not so hot as to burn you, and then place the spoon on the bite. The bite may itch more for the next minute, but it breaks up the toxins and will stop itching. 13. So why not run the bite under the hot water instead? 14. It needs to be so hot that it would be uncomfortable on your whole arm. Something to do with proteins. Irk. Pharmacies also sell a special kind of electric pen thing that you press on the bite. Hurts like a motherfuck but really gets rid of the itch. 15. What you're doing is denaturing proteins that cause the itching. Hence why it needs to be hot, acidic, electric enough to cook the protein. You don't want to denature your own proteins, so localizing the treatment via spoon or electric pen works best. Finally, my degree is useful. 16. Thank you for the explanation, that's really interesting. 17. Doomed is the child who, when kissed on the forehead, tastes salty. He is cursed and will soon die? It's cystic fibrosis. Nowadays, we know that cystic fibrosis is due to a non-functional protein that regulates salt transport. When that protein doesn't work, you get thick, sticky mucus clogging up every membrane and a whole bunch of salt being pumped onto the skin. Many diseases existed for a long time before we had the framework to understand them, but our ancestors were paying attention and trying to understand these tragedies through the lenses that they had. And sometimes, that's how you get an old wives' tale that is right on the money. 18. Call the Midwife had a fascinating episode about this. The mother had lost other children, and the mother knew something was wrong with her baby. The doctors ignored her. The midwife figured it out from the salty taste of the baby. 19. Many of the historical accounts on Call the Midwife are fascinating. After many episodes, I found myself going on deep dives looking up practices and history. 20. I love calm. I just wouldn't recommend watching it while pregnant. Freaked me out. 21. We brought my daughter home from the hospital after a rocky pregnancy. First show we watched after we put her in her pack and play was that calm episode where the baby has a congenital heart defect and dies at home with his parents. Nope, no Siri, no issues here. 22. I loved Call the Midwife. Then I had a traumatic birth experience 3 years ago and haven't been able to enjoy it since. I watched a few episodes as part of my PTSD therapy homework and I can make it through one without a panic attack, but the show no longer brings me joy. 23. Now I am imagining midwives going around licking newborns. No, really, it's a real test. 24. First thing I thought of. Sister Monica Joe knew this one. 25. The full name of diabetes is diabetes mellitus. Mellitus is Latin for honey, because doctors used to diagnose it by tasting your urine. 26. There is also diabetes insipidus. A hormone is defective and you end up urinating a lot. It's not related to diabetes mellitus. 27. And the insipidus. And that means tasteless, as opposed to mellitus. 28. Which is important because diabetes insipidus causes extremely dilute urine, so it tastes less like urine. The interesting part about this is, how much urine were ancient physicians tasting in order to identify these disorders? 29. They weren't. The first-year residents were. 30. Along those lines, in Mandarin the name for diabetes is, which literally translates to sugary urine disease, which is one of the original signs of diabetes, before there were more clinical tests for it, and also even in the current era of urine analysis, sugar levels in urine is a sign too. It's fascinating how the key signs of something transcends cultures with basically zero contact or real influence until much later. 31. This was the first sign that my oldest nephew had CF. Neither of his parents were aware of CF in the family, but luckily they knew to talk to his doctor and got him diagnosed very quickly. 32. How's he doing? I know a family that CF runs heavily in. Everyone and their partners have to get tested before having kids to see if they carry the gene. 33. There is an amazing breakthrough drug called Trikafta that is actually stunningly effective. My friend's son had dropped below 30% lung function and was about to be put on a transplant list when Trikafta launched. He is now over 50%, has not been in the hospital in 4 years, and actually has a glimmer of a future. I hope the family you know is still CF-free. It's an awful disease. 34. I worked on the clinical trials bringing Trikafta to market. 35. You have changed the lives of so many people and their families. Thank you for all your work. 36. It's a life changer. My daughter-in-law has CF, and she is thriving in her mid-30s. Just a few decades ago, that would have been unusual. I hope the treatments keep advancing and that she lives a long and happy life. 37. I am 43. I was in end-stage when refusing a transplant when Orkambi came out, and luckily, that and Simdeko, the next gen, stabilized me enough to live to see Trikafta. I obviously have extremely damaged lungs with lots of scar tissue, so I'll never regain lung function. However, I am no longer extremely malnourished and underweight, a bit chunky now actually, a fun side effect of Trikafta, and my therapies are a year plus apart instead of the 2 to 3 months apart they were when I started Try. I was born in 1980. Every few years, I got a new won't live to see date. First, it was grade school, then preteens, then 16, then 30. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and I really deal with a lot of survivor's guilt. But I am so happy CF will no longer be an early death sentence. The estimated age now is 50 to 60s with these drugs. It was 35 before Try. And I'm so grateful I got to see my complete surprise children graduate high school, and will see the eldest graduate college this spring. Crazy. End rant. 38. I work in clinical research, and stories like yours is what makes it so worth it. Keep thriving and surviving, my friend. 39. Is that an actual quote? Source. I find the inherited knowledge fascinating. In Australia, the First Nations that live near the uranium deposits in Arnhem Land call it the sickening lands. Without having an idea what uranium is or do. 40. This is insanely interesting. I wonder what other old sayings there were then that describes what we've discovered now. 41. Many religious food restrictions were actually for health reasons. 42. In Hinduism we have to cremate our dead within 24 hours of death. I think it's as much for having a dead body hanging around in the heat as anything else. 43. And ritual bathing? Jews were blamed for the Black Death because they caught it less often than their Christian counterparts, likely because they bathed at least once a week for the Sabbath and washed their hands before eating and after going to the bathroom. 44. A cut onion rubbed on insect bites takes away the sting. I've tried it on wasp and ant bites and works instantly. 45. It giveth tears and it taketh away. 46. When rain is coming, your joints hurt. I used to roll my eyes and laugh when Granny said her arthritis was acting up because it was going to rain. I was 10 years old. I'm now 53 and not laughing. Granny 1, me 0. 47. Yeah, the change in air pressure causes it. I always get a sinus headache before a cold front. 48. Oh my God, is that why I had a migraine a few weeks ago? 49. That's my wife. Random headache starts. Instant checklist. When did I last drink water? Get a cup just in case. When was breakfast? Maybe munch on a snack. Still there. Maybe a Coke or small coffee. Still creeping up. Neck and arm rolls, ask for a neck-shoulder massage. Not helping. Check the sleep app and CPAP machine for the report of how I slept. Good 8 hours of sleep. Here's raindrops in the roof. Well, shit. 50. So true? The scientific explanation is that it's due to the low pressure system associated with rain. The drop in barometric pressure, air's weight, takes weight off our body and can cause muscle, tendons, and joints to swell, which causes pain. Even more so if you have scar tissue from a previous injury or arthritis. It can also trigger headaches. 51. Yup, can feel all my fractures years and years later thanks to cold damp weather. Like exact point of fracture can be felt and it hurts. 52. Gathering herbs by the light of the moon. Some plants, pollinated by moths, have their most potent oils at night to attract night insects. So if you need it at its strongest, pick it at night. 53. Which herbs? 54. Which herbs? 55. Learn something new today. Thanks. 56. A while back, scientists set out to prove false the old wives' tale that if a pregnant woman has lots of heartburn, her baby will be born with a thick head of hair. Except, they ended up doing the opposite. Turns out heartburn really is associated with a baby having lots of hair. 57. Can confirm. Had absolutely horrendous heartburn. My daughter came out as hairy as a monkey. 58. How is the little monkey now? 59. Considerably less hairy, haha, with crazy hair on her head still though. 60. Sounds like a happy monkey lol. 61. I had so much heartburn and my baby was practically bald until he was 1. 62. Bald for the first 5 months here, and heartburn so bad it kept me awake all night in the final weeks. 63. If you have bad back pain or a broken rib and have to sneeze, look up. Will hurt way less. 64. Sneezing with a broken rib feels eerily similar to being shot in the chest. 65. Sounds like you've had some terrible luck in your time. 66. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. A red sky appears when dust and small particles are trapped in the atmosphere by high pressure. This scatters blue light, leaving only red light to give the sky its notable appearance. A red sky at sunset means high pressure is moving in from the west, so therefore the next day will usually be dry and pleasant. Met Office. 67. Shepherds for us here in the UK. 68. A good senator is a poor senator. 69. Only if they stay that way. 70. More of an old nurse's tale, but redheads need more anesthetic. Turns out that there is a linked gene to red hair that increases resistance or metabolism or something to the drug. At any rate, waking up in the middle of a full colonoscopy sucks. Hearing the doctor say, "Ah shit, she's awake, give her another one." And the nurse, all melodramatic as she pushes another syringe's worth into you, the fourth, saying to him, "Are you sure, doctor?" As your eyes slowly close again is especially awesome. 71. When I was in 7th grade, I needed to have my baby teeth pull out because I had 2 permanent teeth that were laying sideways and backwards. The baby teeth would never be able to come out on their own. The baby teeth had their roots a little around the permanent teeth. The dentist numbed me and started to pull. It was incredibly painful and I started to cry and yell out in pain. I will never ever forget what the dentist told me. He said I wasn't in pain, it was just pressure I was feeling and I was scared. It hurt so bad. I had to do that twice. 6 teeth altogether, 3 at a time. I had braces for 7 years and 2 oral surgeries. Years later, as an adult, I had to have one of my wisdom teeth pulled and I was shaking because I was so scared. When the hygienist numbed me, she tested to ensure it was numb. It was not. She said, "Oh, you're in a small percentage of people who need extra. I figured you might be because of your gender and red hair." She gave me a second shot. It went smoothly. I keep thinking back to when I was just a kid, screaming in pain as they pulled my teeth without being completely numb. 72. Poor baby. Oh man, I'm so sorry. The story I've heard is that this was a funny little observation by doctors and nurses for decades, but nobody understood why. They've only recently discovered the gene in the last 20 years or so, this validating lots of horrible experiences by patients and oddball observations by doctors. I am so sorry no one listened to you then. I'm glad that they're listening now. 73. Similar experience. Had 4 fillings done when I was a teen. Dentist refused to believe I wasn't numb. I avoided the dentist for years after that. I now know to warn them to give me a combo with epinephrine. I still often have a weird reaction but can get numb that way. I prefer to be sedated also. I'm not a redhead but my dad was. 74. Yep. Nurses didn't believe me when I told them the epidural didn't work. Dentists also didn't believe me when I wouldn't numb. It's not pain, it's pressure. Is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. And I heard it wayy too many times. Do you actually think I don't know the difference between pressure and being in so much pain that I want to pass out? If you are someone who has ever said that to someone, kindly pull your head out of your fucking ass. I have 2 broken teeth at the moment that have been broken for literal years, and best believe I won't step foot into the dentist unless I'm dying from pain. 75. Pressure not pain. Heard that from a male doc while in labor. Thought about squeezing his balls really hard and having him differentiate for me. 76. I gave 1,000 meg of fentanyl and 10 milligrams of verse to a red-headed patient during a procedure a couple of weeks ago. Never given that much before. 77. Christ, I was in so much pain after I woke up from the colonoscopy, I can't even imagine waking up during it. Fuck that. 78. Interesting, I had virtually no pain. They gave me a sedative, so I was awake through it all. 79. My redhead ex needed like 3 times normal amount of gas to get a root canal done. Then she wouldn't wake up for several hours. 80. Yikes. That's alarming. I dreamt during my wisdom teeth removal and said as much to the nurses, but they told me that it wasn't possible. I recalled elements of my dream, and they looked at each, horrified. I was repeating parts of their conversations, nothing juicy, sorry. I had awakened at some point. I don't remember the horror of it, but I wonder if, at the time, I was fully aware and trapped. God, I hope not. Since mentioning my experiences to anesthesiologists while tugging on my hair for emphasis, I haven't had any problems. Edit, Happy Cake Day. 81. Nurses used to put jaundice's babies on windowsills until their color returned. No idea how they figured it out, but it's actually a legitimate cure. 82. My sister-in-law saw a picture of my newborn and says, she's jaundiced, put her by the window or take her outside for a wee bit. Hospital didn't mention jaundice at all, but turns out she was, and taking her outside worked. 83. They usually put them in UV cribs for a day or two. Many Asian babies, while might not be jaundiced, spend a bit of time under UV just in case. 84. Chicken soup when you're sick. Gotta stay hydrated. 85. Protein, carbs, fat, and electrolytes. It's a solid choice. 86. It's more of a liquid choice. 87. And garlic is antibacterial. 88. Chicken broth is also better than water at reducing nasal congestion. 89. Yeah, but I'm not putting it in my needy pot. 90. My grandmother always insisted that a new mom in the family get up and walk as soon after delivery as possible. Said if you stay in the bed a lot after giving birth, your hips would spread and stay that way. Turns out the hormone changes during childbirth cause your cartilage to become flexible so your hips can widen some. It wears off fast though, so if you stay in the bed for days, like they did back in the day, your cartilage hardens back up, spread out. When you walk, your center of gravity is in your pelvis and pushes it back together. I've never seen a medical study on it, but none of the women in my family have wider hips after having kids. 91. It's called relaxin. It makes your connective tissue, muscle, joints and ligaments super flexible so it's easier to give birth. It's also why some people who have periods have specific joint issues after ovulation and before their period. Another fun fact, pregnant people do actually glow. The increase in estrogen makes hair and nails grow faster and thicker and improves skin elasticity. The downside is that after giving birth and experiencing a sharp drop in estrogen, your hair can shed like crazy. It's the same reason a lot of people experience hair loss when coming off combined hormonal contraceptives. Bodies are fascinating. 92. The glow is not the increased estrogen, it's the increased blood supply. Women gain 4 pounds of blood during pregnancy. 93. Letting a baby eat after you will cause them to get cavities. When my sister told us not to let my nephew eat something we've taken a bite out of, I thought she was full of shit. It turns out adults really can transfer cavity-causing bacteria to babies. 94. If you ever feel dehydrated, get a pinch of salt, put it in your water and add lemon, no sugar, and just drink. It helps. 95. Sounds legit. To add on, if you're ever feeling dehydrated and water doesn't help, you need electrolytes. Salt, Gatorade, soup, whatever you have available. I sweat a lot and bringing electrolyte juice drink mixes makes hiking bearable for me. 96. My doctor told me to do that instead of Gatorade. I easily get dehydrated and get headaches from it. First sign of headache, I lick a pinch of salt and drink a glass of water. 97. drinking gelatin to up amniotic fluid during pregnancy. They wanted to schedule a C-section at 32 weeks for my kid, due to low amniotic fluid. My friend's midwife told me to mix gelatin packets into apple juice and drink it before it started to thicken. 3x a day? Brought my levels up from a 3 to an 8. And managed to keep the kid baking for another 4 weeks. She was born at 36 weeks, weighing 3 ounces. So, the gods only know how tiny she would have been at 32 weeks. She was discharged with me 3 days later, at 1 ounces. Perfectly healthy, besides being as tiny as a doll. And she didn't wear clothes for 4 months because I was terrified of breaking her. But, yeah, I never thought it would work. 98. Good midwives are gold. 99. I can't believe there are over 400 comments and nobody has mentioned one of the most valuable old wives' tales, that garlic had medicinal powers for a wide variety of ailments. 100. Ginger, onions, oregano, rosemary, thyme, St. John's wort, old man's beard, usnea, mushrooms. So many herbs, veggies, and fungi are proven to have amazing medicinal uses. 101. Cold cabbage leaves relieves engorgement and mastitis pain while nursing. It sounds so old wives' tale, but it's been proved true. 102. Pregnant women should not be near cat litter. Source: am blind in one eye from toxoplasmosis acquired in utero. 103. I'm really sorry to hear that. I double-gloved and held my breath when I was pregnant. 104. If you were a cat owner, chances are nearly 100% you had already had toxo at that point and acquired lifelong immunity, but one can never be cautious enough, I guess. 105. Yup. In Europe, they offered me a blood test to check for immunity when I went to the doctor to talk about trying for a baby, as my doctor knew I had cats. As expected, I had it at some stage in the past and so didn't have to be worried about being around cat litter during pregnancy. 106. Open a window to let out ghosts. If you are seeing things, it's probably actually gas or carbon dioxide. 107. Monoxide, not dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what you exhale. Carbon monoxide is the gas that you need detectors for. It causes hallucinations and confusion. 108. When your scars itch, it's going to rain. 109. Recent surgery on joints, you notice the air pressure change. 110. Recent? Shit, I had a knee replacement 7 years ago and I can still feel when the weather's about to change. 111. You really don't want to touch that frozen metal pole with your tongue. 112. My mom lived in Alaska for a bit when she was young, and told me a story about how the local kids showed her a piece of tongue permanently frozen to a pole beneath one of the stilted housing units. Just the second-hand account of it scared the shit out of me as a kid. 113. I never understood why they couldn't pour warm water over his tongue to melt the ice. 114. They could do that, or they could laugh and take pictures. 115. I never saw Christmas Story and didn't think it was real. I was in a high school parking lot with one friend around in the middle of the night and had to tear my tongue off the pole. For over a year it hurt to eat and drink until it healed. The next day I saw my tongue on the pole. I still feel stupid and I'm in my 30s. (116) Looking at something too close, like the TV, for too long will strain your eyes. You need to exercise your long-distance focusing muscles to prevent myopia. If you always look at things close up, you can develop it. Studies show that myopia is more often linked with behavior and environment rather than genetics. 117. My eyesight got considerably worse during lockdown. I have terrible myopia already, but my works had been fairly stable for years. But while with never driving, and basically living like a hermit, my work's changed enough every year that I needed new glasses. My eye doc doesn't seem to think much of this correlation, but I still now try to go outside every day for a decent amount of time and or gaze pensively out the window. 118. Mongolian herders live in the steppe regions of Mongolia, where there's basically no trees or large cover for miles and miles. Amazingly, very few Mongolian people living in those conditions need glasses. I do know my own vision started going down the shitter when I started using a computer for work all day, every day. 119. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Up Jack got and home did trot, as fast as he could caper. Went to bed to mend his head with vinegar and brown paper. According to my 96-year-old grandma, if you have a sprain, a bruise or any kind of muscle ache, you wrap it in a brown paper bag soaked in vinegar. She's been doing it for almost a century and says it works for her. I have my doubts, but as long as she's happy, it's cool, even if she's a little stinky, lol. 120. NGL, I honestly didn't know there was a second part after Jill came tumbling after. 121. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. Red sky at night, shepherd's delight. 122. Thought it was sailor's delight? Maybe it's geographical. 123. Haha, I live near lots of shepherds, and not so many sailors. This old wives' tale must be true on land and sea. 124. Who takes care of all the sheepfish? 125. Don't shower during a lightning storm. You might get electrocuted. 126. A stitch in time saves 9. So true? 127. Vinegar. That's it. That's my old wives' tale. Just vinegar. 128. My mother has a trick for when you have the hiccups. It works every time. Chug a tall glass of water while pinching your nose closed to not breath. Take many small sips while swallowing, and then just pause after for a moment. Resume breathing normally. 129. Mine is plug your ears and drink through a straw for a bit. Works every time for me, who knows who. 130. Don't pee into the wind. 131. Don't tug on Superman's cape. 132. And more importantly, don't mess around with Slim.